The cycle of death and rebirth has caused a whole lot of controversy in comics over the years. Killing off beloved characters was once a shocking and upsetting thing to do, often catching devoted fans way off guard. However, folks realized that it was a great way to keep interest high, and we've seen a lot of half-baked deaths and subsequent resurrections as a result. Still, there are quite a few superhero deaths that really did hit the mark, rocking people's worlds and inspiring great outbursts of emotion. The ones you don't predict are often the ones that affect you the most, so here we go. It's time for the top 10 superhero deaths nobody saw coming. Coming in at number 10, we've got the Blue Beetle. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. That's what they always say, right? Well, that's what happened here. An enemy got in real close. Too close, in fact, seeing as his proximity allowed him to absolutely dome the Blue Beetle. Let me explain. Back before Infinite Crisis, Maxwell Lord wasn't seen as a villain. In fact, this would-be baddie was a friend to the Justice League, or so they thought. Because as soon as he had the opportunity, Mr. Lord pulled out his gun and blew the Blue Beetle away. Poor Ted Kord didn't even see it coming. And neither did anyone reading. This kind of betrayal was totally out of the blue and threw a lot of fans way off. At the time this came out, it was an insanely unpredictable move, especially as the Blue Beetle was wasted right in front of his best friend. Maxwell Lord would go on to cause plenty more trouble for the Justice League, but it's hard to imagine acts worse than gaining the trust of a superhero, and all of his fans, only to absolutely annihilate him when his guard was down. Coming in number 9, we've got Rorschach. Watchmen is such a rich tome, full of all sorts of overlapping storylines and fascinating characters. A fan favorite has to be the Inkblot man himself, eater of cold beans and thrower of hot oil, Rorschach. It's funny that this character, styled after the perception testing psychological assessment, can be interpreted by different people in different ways. Sure, Moore may have created him as a way to showcase the flaws in other similar superheroes, but a lot of folks saw the brooding, ultra-violent detective as a symbol of edgy justice. There's a lot of depth to Rorschach, which is compounded upon throughout the graphic novel as he skulks in the darkness attempting to solve a puzzle that isn't meant to be solved. We learn of his traumatic childhood and of his deep insecurities and complexes, and his pathological need to beat the ever-living daylights out of anyone who may stand in his way. However, after all of this, poor Rorschach goes out with a simultaneous bang and whimper. In a world full of vigilantes limited by their own human bodies and heroes bankrolled by higher powers, running into a true superhuman is something else. So when Rorschach, after all of his night-crawling antics, runs into Dr. Manhattan, he's unable to really do anything. He's no longer in his city, and his rage at the world around him is unbridled. Unable to compromise his morals, Rorschach would have threatened the peace Ozymandias and Manhattan worked towards if he was allowed to live. So Dr. Manhattan just blows him up. Pop. On first read, it really is surprising. It seems like it happens out of the blue. But going back and considering all that was happening, it sort of makes sense. Still though, who expects the character they've followed through greasy back alleys and horrific prisons to suddenly burst like a balloon? Coming in at number 8, we've got Wolverine. Damn, who would have thought that the adamantium-boned super freak could die, right? He essentially doesn't age and can heal from pretty much any wound, so how does one kill Wolverine? Well, it went down in a pretty fitting fashion, that's for sure. You can understand that old Logan would be pretty tired after all his years of heroism and hurt, so when his healing factor finally crapped out, it was time for a long rest. However, he wasn't going down alone. Deciding he would prevent any other Wolverines from coming into existence, and in doing so hopefully stop anyone from feeling pain as he has, he sought out Dr. Abraham Cornelius, the man who performed the life-altering experiments on him. The fight was intense and resulted in Wolverine being covered in liquid adamantium. Fitting, right? The stuff that's helped keep him alive from the inside all these years, now totally surrounding and suffocating him. He went down doing what was important to him though, which is also fitting. I suppose a lot of people did see this coming, considering the run was known as the death of Wolverine, but comics have teased the death of major heroes in the past and then found ways around that sort of permanency. It's just wild to see a character who couldn't die if they tried finally take the big sleep. Coming in at number 7, we've got Alfred Pennyworth. Not Alfred. The beloved butler to Bruce/Batman, brutally brought down by an evil addition of Papa Wayne. For what reason, you may ask? Well, this alternate version of Thomas Wayne wanted to teach Bruce a lesson. He found his way into the main DC universe with the intent to show Bruce how much pain and suffering being a hero would cause. So he killed Alfred and nothing was ever the same. Taking out such a long-standing and integral supporting character is an enormous thing to do, and it all happened so quickly. One day, Alfred was here, the next, he was gone. This caused plenty of cascading changes too, from negatively affecting the mental state of all those who cherished Alfred to the increased reliance on Lucius Fox. Coming in number 6, we've got Captain Marvel. Now here's an odd send-off for a superhero. Instead of being bested in battle or sacrificing oneself for the greater good, Mar-Vell was killed by something more folks might be able to relate to. It was cancer. The powerful and generous hero learned that he was ill and there wasn't much he could do about it. He learns that his past experiences exposed him to a highly volatile substance that gave him incurable cancer. From there, he does his best to be at peace with his dwindling lifespan and is visited by all sorts of people, both friend and foe, in one final send-off. The final figure that arrived was his longtime enemy and leader of the Skrulls, Thanos. He wasn't there to fight though, he was there to guide Mar-Vell to the afterlife. It says a lot about a character when even their most bitter rival shows up at the end to lend a hand. Coming in number 5, we've got Gwen Stacy. Gwen Stacy had such a huge impact on Peter Parker and therefore Spider-Man that it's impossible to look past this shocking death. The implications of that final neck snap reverberated all throughout the comic community. There has been plenty of controversy over Spider-Man's attempt to save Gwen and whether or not he contributed to her death by catching her awkwardly. Was it his fault that he couldn't save her? What does that mean for Peter moving forward? How much of the blame can be placed on the Green Goblin? All very good questions, a few of which caused more than minor uproar. It was later revealed that Gwen died of shock on her way to the ground, so there was nothing the web-slinger could do regardless. But her death forever altered the way Peter Parker looked at the world, and I'd say a lot of fans feel the same way. Coming in number 4, we've got Superman. Now this was probably the apex of impactful superhero deaths. Not necessarily because of the actual impact of his passing, but the craziness that it caused everywhere. Like, when folks learned of Superman's death in 1992, sales went through the roof. Until that point, Superman was invincible. He could not be beat, let alone killed. Sure, he'd had brushes with failure in the past, and there were times that he could not complete the tasks he needed to complete, but dying? Superman? Damn, Doomsday, your name is really apt. Even the follow-up issue sold like hotcakes, almost matching the sales of the death of Superman. That's how you keep folks invested, apparently. Kill off your hero. Coming in number 3, we've got Elektra. A whole decade before Superman bit the dust, we had another controversial, dark, and upsetting death in comics. The assassin in red, martial arts master, and love interest of Matt Murdock, Elektra. After a brutal fight with Bullseye, Elektra is pierced through the chest and left to die. It was a wild move, especially for the time. Nobody expected this well-developed fan favorite to kick the bucket just like that, but that is exactly what happened. And it wasn't a half-assed death either. There was no coming back from it. When it happened, Elektra was dead and gone. Sure, she's made her way back into the rotation now in alternate universes and other comics, but in that run, she was gone. Coming in number 2, we've got Jason Todd. Oh boy. You could argue that people did see this one coming, as DC allowed fans to call in and vote for the outcome. It was up to the good folks at home to decide whether Robin would live or die, and in the end, they chose for him to die. That's brutal. After a drawn-out battle with the Joker, where poor Jason is beaten within an inch of his life, Batman almost pulls off the rescue. However, at the last moment, a bomb goes off and Robin tosses himself atop to stifle the explosion. There's no coming back from an injury like that. So thanks to the fans that voted for it, and some particularly fiendish storytelling, the Boy Wonder was no more. Ouch. And finally at number 1, we've got Barry Allen. Oh no. This is a tough one to stomach, that's for sure. After a lifetime's worth of genius brainpower and speed beyond measure, it seemed that the Flash would never truly meet his match. Nothing lasts forever though, and when an antimatter cannon was being prepped for annihilation, he had to step up, and fast. So that's what he did. Barry created a speed vortex powerful enough to destroy the weapon and prevent it from causing any harm, but in doing so exerted too much energy. The force that he generated tore his own body apart, ending his life. The worst bit is, folks got to see his face break down to nothing as it was happening. It's a wild and disturbing image for sure. So by putting it all on the line to save the world, Barry lost it all. So there you go. 10 superhero deaths that shocked and appalled many, with long-lasting implications and crazy revelations galore. So, what'd you think of the list? Do you agree with my picks? What superhero death caught you most off guard? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.